Something happens.
I'd like to call to order the Selectmen's meeting of Tuesday, April 23rd at 7 PM. Stand for the pledge, please.
Stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have one thing on our agenda today. Oh, I should ask, is there anybody in the audience that has anything they want to discuss? Seeing as none, our first thing on our agenda are, what's that? Uh-oh. Keith, couldn't you help me there? Come on up, Lisa.
Oh, I don't have.
Lisa, name and,
Yes, Lisa Mozinski, 60 Oak Street.
yes.
I just wanted to remind the board and invite the public to Thursday night here. We are, the Open Space Committee is hosting an information session on the Community Preservation Act. We have Ann Mazar from Mendon coming in to share her experiences and what the act has done for that community and how we can apply some of those things to Douglas if we successfully pass it. So that's, again, at 7 o'clock here on Thursday evening. Thank you. I hope
Thank
you all
you.
come.
Yep, thank you. Okay. First thing, and the only thing on our agenda is the town meeting discussion with the moderator. Could you come up, please?
Good morning, everyone.
How you doing?
Afternoon and evening. All of the above. When you go home to a gas leak, it seems like all of the above. This is the weirdest thing. It was actually on the stove. And it's the
Oh, the knob.
knob. The knob got stuck in. It smelled good. Good time to try cigarettes. All right. So, just kidding. Don't
Yeah,
smoke.
yeah,
All right. Yeah. My wife's like, I turned on the fan. I was like, oh. You lived. That's good. All right, so let's jump in. Article 1, special town meeting. Obviously, I just try to, look at things that might jump out. Obviously, a decrease in highway wages of $83,000 and a decrease in Norfolk Aggie of $80,000 is jumps out. I'm assuming, maybe incorrectly, that the decrease in Aggie just means that there was less students going there than anticipated.
Correct.
And the highway wages?
We are switching from, well, not switching from, but as a result of retirements of people at higher steps, we're hiring people at lower steps. And I'm trying to think of what the other reason. Oh, at this point, this is the special. So this is for this
Yeah.
year. We did not backfill Adam Furno's position.
Okay.
Adam was promoted to John's, and Adam's old position was left vacant, so they have this extra money in their compensation account available to transfer.
Moving on. Article 4, and just so Gene and I spoke a little while ago, there's one of the things that I like to do is, to say as printed in the warrant, and Gene's going to flag some of those ahead of time to make sure that I do not do that. But all of the slides are taken from these motions and explanations. So if it doesn't say as printed in the warrant in here, it won't say as printed in the warrant on the slide. Article 4, the opioid special revenue account. Can you just give me a really high-level explanation of that account? I know that there's something in Mass General Law that's allowing.
And that's a change. So the town participated in the opioid litigation. Many of those cases have settled, so there are substantial cash judgments or settlements being paid to all the municipalities that participated. when the settlement was first issued, the process in Massachusetts was that money from a settlement of that nature would close to free cash.
Okay.
The trouble with that is that the opioid settlements are highly restricted. We may only use the funds for designated purposes for opioid prevention and coping with addiction in the community. So the Massachusetts Department of Revenue prevailed upon the legislature to change the law. We may now have a special restricted receipts account for the opioid settlement fund so that we can account for how we're spending things against the judgment decree, the settlement decree. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go back and get some of this year's funds that were close to free cash, put them into that account.
Okay. And that account is new?
Yes.
Article 6, cost overrun on the cleanup.
Yep.
Moving on to the annual. My plan is, obviously we bundle 1, 2, and 3. We'll run that the same way we normally do. And then my plan is to bundle 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. As those are basically housekeeping issues. Is there any issue with bundling 4 with those? There is, okay. Then never mind. So we'll bundle 5, 6, 7, and 8. Article 9, do you want to do a summary slide for that, or do you think everything is just pretty self-explanatory in the warrant?
So the problem for me is I live this, so I know how all these tables are calculated, and I participate in the process. So it's very clear to me. But this is for a town meeting voter, and I just want to make sure that people get an explanation, so they know what they're voting on and feel comfortable with it. Having said that, this is a recurring item in the town meeting warrant every year. These charts are put in for town meeting's approval.
And I know last year I felt it was much, there was a lot of changes last year, so it really needed to go in depth.
Well, so last year we did compensation reform. This year we did not do any additional reforms. We have a 2% COLA, but it's being applied against the base figures from last year, so there's
Yeah.
not a lot of change.
So I guess that was kind of my thing, is in that way, it seemed pretty self-explanatory. Nothing jumped out at me other than it's a 2% COLA, so.
The only new table, Mr. Chairman, through you to the moderator, is the call firefighters table. This is a new table, and this was put in place to reflect the change we made to the firefighters' compensation table in their union contract. So our reference point is no longer the firefighter role. By reference point, I mean that base figure that we use to calculate the other rates of pay for different grades was usually, well, you're a firefighter, plus you do this, plus you do that, and we would add things. We had to, in order to remain competitive with all of the other communities recruiting paramedics, we reset the table so the reference point is now the cost of hiring a paramedic. And we add to that. So that changed the way the hierarchy works.
Yep.
So now your medic's salary is your base. And, you might, if a firefighter has no EMS training at all, it's going to be somewhat below that base. Before there was the base, then you added medic onto that as just an extra. We did that.
Is that part of the ratification in Article 11?
The union table is,
So-
But here it's call, they are not represented by the union. They are non-union staff.
Okay, so we're not putting the cart before the horse there. Okay, great. So yeah, like I said, I don't, maybe if you want to have a slide, that outlines that, but,
Doesn't hurt to make one, and if you need it, it's there.
Yeah, right.
Can't make it on the spot.
well, you can, but it won't be pretty.
You don't want to watch me do it.
Let's see. The capital improvement plan. This is all with money that we currently have, correct? And kind of the asterisk on the capital improvement plan in the future was, if we want these things, we're probably going to need a debt exclusion. Is that a good way to understand that, or no?
So only this year's capital improvement plan is funded. It is funded through a transfer from free cash. These out years represent the capital committee's efforts to project spending into the future at a stable quantity that we typically can fund through accumulation of free cash. But there's no obligation. Town meeting obviously
Yeah.
can't bind future town meeting. So
Yep.
this is just to give people a sense of what's going to come up in the next 4 years after this year.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. That's what I was trying to say is that the part of the plan, there's kind of a warning in there of if you want X, then,
Yeah.
but like you said, there's no binding to, but, so this is fully funded. Article 11 and 12, I need just the overview slides for.
Okay.
Yeah, we usually do that anytime we're ratifying a contract, just kind of the high level of what the contracts are. Article 13, that is the petitioner's article, correct? Yep. So on that one, as we've done in the past, the petitioner will move the article and wait for a second. They'll be able to give their proponent speech, answer questions, and then after that, they would be seated and we'd move into debate and voting. Any questions on that? I understand the petitioner is here. Any questions on that? No.
Language appears incomplete with these placeholder X's.
Are you speaking to me?
No, I was chair.
Well, you can't put the date in until it has been adopted, that's why the X's are there.
No, it actually looks like there's research that needs to be done. That the town adopted Chapter 40, 21P. I actually know the answer to this because the town's wetland bylaw, by reference, adopts the fee structure. The non-criminal disposition procedure is adopted by reference in our local bylaw. So I think we need to just put the reference in here, just make a note of that.
Per Rich, a citizen's petition has to be submitted as, put in the warrant as submitted.
Oh.
So any changes would have to be.
Has to be amended on the floor.
Yeah, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be amended on the floor the same way that, the motion can be somewhat different than, what's printed in the warrant, to get into more specifics. It just can't change the scope of the article. So I understand there's some language that might be cleaned up. And so when the motion is made, it would be made as printed in the warrant with the following edits. And we'll make that pretty obvious.
Did you catch all that, Lisa?
Yes, I
Yeah.
did.
No, the other Lisa.
I just curious.
Not Lisa.
No, that Lisa.
I apologize, I did not get a chance to print Article 14. Was that the, basically edits made by the AG, or is this a completely new bylaw?
So this is really important for folks to understand that the solar bylaw passed town meeting.
Yep.
So it is a bylaw in the town of Douglas. And the Attorney General did not tell us that we could not enforce it. It's on the books. The Attorney General suggested to the town of Douglas edits, which appear here as bold, underlined text, in order to make the bylaw clearer, in some cases more consistent with state law, and more readily enforced, and in some cases more circumspect. So on page 19, you'll see in section 6.8.13, the addition of the word grading after stabilization. It's just the Attorney General catching something that we didn't put in the draft, that they know that we need to have in there. But it's not a vote on all the text. Town meeting already approved all the text. What your town meeting would be approving or not approving is the underlined, bolded edits made by the Attorney General.
Okay. Neat.
So if you didn't like it the first time, you can vote against it again, but it may not change the
Yeah,
outcome
right.
because the motion is to accept the edits.
Yep.
The good news is we have identified speakers for it.
I'm sorry.
The good news is we have identified speakers for it, so we won't go through it the same process as last year.
You want 3 times for emphasis?
Does Keith have a copy of that? Might be helpful.
I do, I apologize. I just, it didn't make it into the printer. I printed everything fine. So I'm, like I said, I'm just playing through scenarios in my head of, how this is going to go. And at the end of the day, if the edits are not accepted, the bylaw as stands.
There is a bylaw in place.
Yeah, it just becomes more cumbersome.
Yeah.
Shit's got cleaned up.
Neat. A high-level background on Article 15, the transfer into the Conservation Commission. There seems to be some dispute between the article and the Finance Committee, which I'm assuming has just something to do with taking money off the taxpayer rolls, but I'm just kind of wondering, like, how, why?
Well, to do my best to channel the Finance Committee here, when land is taken into the possession of the Conservation Commission, it's under a specific statute with certain restrictions in perpetuity. There were members of the Finance Committee that preferred that the land be transferred to the town, accepted by the town under the control of the Select Board, which would have fewer restrictions. The case, the example given was if we wanted to swap some portion of this lot with an abutter in order to get an access point that would open up the land so that people could visit it. Would you be able to do that necessarily under a conservation donation as opposed to a donation to the town? That was a speculative example. I'm not even entirely sure that the Conservation Commission couldn't do that. I actually think they could, but the Select Board is elected, Conservation Commission is appointed. even if it is appointed by the select board, it won't change as quickly as the select board could if people disagreed with their approach to things. So I think that was what informed that conversation that night.
And what is the Board of Selectmen's rationale for wanting to move this piece of land?
What's our rationale?
Yeah.
It was presented to us as that, and we didn't come up with this idea to move it over.
You put it on the warrant as it was presented. which was
Correct.
For the conservation.
Correct, but it wasn't, we didn't propose it. We accepted it.
Cavernous land, right?
Cavernous land.
Right? What, I mean, there's a uniqueness to this land that was like a.
The caves,
protected.
yes.
I've never been there, never walked them. I just thought, that's a good.
It's on my list of
Things to do.
things to do.
Call me, I'll go with you.
All right.
So,
I was gonna say, we'd get the bus, but we don't have access.
What's that?
I'd say we get the bus, but we don't have access.
The moment you have to trespass to get there, but it is what,
Yeah.
never stopped me.
You've been?
Fishing rod, no. But the old write-ups is this may have been a Native American site where they waited for game to approach and had good visibility from almost Douglas's version of Purgatory Cats.
Okay.
A lot of the land is wet and unbuildable.
So it's Purgatory Castle. Article 16, was this another AG issue?
No.
No, okay.
So this is where you may get the most discussion, Mr. Moderator. Conservation Commission voted unanimously to support this bylaw proposal, and the Finance Committee and Planning Board voted unanimously to oppose this bylaw. So those of us who work day to day don't take a position on it, right? We're going to implement the laws that are passed by town meeting. We have identified an issue, though, and that is that we are often called upon by people to protect their interests in their property when somebody gets a project next door and a lot of water runs off and damages their property. There's a private cause of action, obviously, but there's also the public nexus, is sometimes that water has been gathered and directed by the developer of the development. Right, so our official town boards are signing off on plans that include the management of stormwater in a fashion that collects the water, puts it into a concentrated source, sends it out of a pipe at high velocity onto somebody else's property. And we don't really have the basis for necessarily ruling against that, say some. It's muddy at best, say the rest of us, right? It's just not a clear legal foundation. So the Community Development Department looked to examples. This is an example of a stormwater bylaw that covers these bases and asks people who are going to develop significant properties to maintain stormwater on their property and to use various best management practices to do that. Whether or not this is the best available vehicle for this conversation is a matter for town meeting to decide. But at a minimum, what we'll get from this conversation as a community is some sense of what the direction forward is going to be. So even if it were to be defeated, but there was ample support in the room to arrive at a solution, we would take that as a marching order to have the conversations with stakeholders and try to hammer out language that would come back to another town. It's a general bylaw. There's no prohibition on it being brought back immediately. The zoning bylaw, as you know, can't. This is a general. That's the most context I feel.
Yeah, no, that's,
it's-
I believe that's a good high-level explanation of it.
1 minute. Keith, yes, Lisa?
With the bylaw changes, including the citizen petition, is that a straight majority, simple majority, or would that require 2/3 vote, please?
The The stormwater bylaw is a simple majority. The petitioner's article is also a simple majority.
Thank you.
And as much as I, might have looked smart there, it's only because that's what our legal counsel told us.
It's an amendment to a general bylaw, so it's separate.
I have a cheat sheet, that's. Never want to appear smarter than I am. So then Article 17, I understand the process for that is if it passes, then it will need to also go to a ballot because it is a debt exclusion. I'm guessing that that ballot would be for our portion. Cool. All right. Yeah. Article 18. I've been trying to figure that one out. How do we have land in Uxbridge?
So, two things that happened. The border of Douglas and Uxbridge is about as certain as the border between Poland and Germany. It changes from time to time,
Fluid.
to put it nicely. And so it's been fluid in the past. The other thing is every time a state government takes property in order to build a highway, it's basically a massacre. Because they're going to design their road. And there are all these fragments thrown all over the place of private property that results after the road, the right-of-way is laid out. And that's kind of what happened here. Before 146 existed, this little sliver united to other properties that were owned by a private party, really owned from the corner of North and Gilboa, the Yellow House, all the way down the street, including that shore of the pond, the dam, and then additional property beyond that. Some of it is in Uxbridge. That taxpayer lost all their property at tax sale or tax title to the town of Douglas. So we actually own this sliver of land in Uxbridge. It also happens the other way. The town of Uxbridge owns land in Douglas, not far off of Davis Street, and fairly substantial holdings, as a result of a donation from a farmer way in the back days. So this happens. In this particular case, the request is to turn this land over to the select board for a disposition. They're no longer needed for municipal purposes, so that the town can unify it to all of the landowners in the back that form pine, sand, and gravel, and it becomes part of that lot.
And Uxbridge has no,
They had no say-so. I mean, it's in their best interest. We're not going to pay the tax bill. They can send us a tax bill every day, we're never paying it. They can't tax a fellow municipality. But they'll be able to tax the owner of it as commercial industrial property. At least the meets and bounds on the lot aren't referring to a stone wall or, where the chicken laid its egg last year.
yeah, yep,
Big old stuff.
The big old stump.
yeah. So that was really all my questions. I got the, kind of who to direct to, because like I said, I still plan on kind of running it the way that we have been for numerous years now, where either I'll make the motion or I'll take the motion from the floor. It keeps things moving. But if there's any dissent or questions, then,
Yeah, that was the purpose of that, because it's frustrating for everybody to go through that process, and everybody's looking around like, who's going
Yeah,
to
who
speak?
wants it?
So
Yeah.
I asked Lisa to compile, contact everybody that's going to speak on these, and so you'd have that list.
yeah, I think that'll work.
Am I on that list?
Yeah, on the first 6 items.
I haven't seen it.
the back, the last 2 pages of your packet.
Yeah. I mean, do you have authority to be able to, I mean, this is top secret stuff. Are you, do you have your clearances in order?
We didn't do anything while you were absent, Tim, don't worry.
The old, he wasn't at that meeting. You're assigned everything.
Regional planner.
Any questions for me? Okay. Bring coffee.
Bring donuts, that's a requirement. The
Like I
first
said, I still firmly believe and try to do my best to expedite the things that can and should be expedited so that we have time and attention for the things that need time and attention. I will continue to do that to the best of my ability. But this is a pretty meaty meeting. So we'll do our best to keep everything moving and on track. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Need
Thank
any
you.
other information from me that I didn't?
No, so just the few things that, that I asked for slides.
All
and
firefighters,
then-
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll, Gene's going to kind of flag some of the ones just to make sure that I don't.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
have a good night.
Thank you.
With that, the only next thing on our agenda is to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to adjourn.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.